Welcome back to Google Cloud Next 26. We are streaming live here in Las Vegas. I'm Alison Kosik, joined alongside by John Furrier, and we are talking about data readiness.
Yeah, I mean, I think data is critical to AI. We've seen that, all the conversations in Savannah with the full stack kind of brings it into picture and really kind of highlights the end of, we hope, for data silos. And that's the number one thing that comes in. And of course, when you're crossing boundaries, agents need to be smart, and adding intelligence to them is going to make the game change significantly. This next segment, we'll unpack all that.
Yeah, let's open up the conversation. We've got Fawad Shaikh, he's the General Manager of Health Data Office, TELUS Health. Welcome to theCUBE.
Thank you, Alison.
And Saurabh Mishra, thanks for joining theCUBE, Global Head of Google Cloud Business, Quantiphi. Thanks for joining theCUBE.
Thank you.
The first question for you, Fawad, you were just mentioning silos. You know, we've seen healthcare traditionally kind of operate in silos. Payers, providers, employers, consumers are kind of all sitting in these fragmented data sets. As of this year, what's fundamentally changing in this industry, and why is this the right moment for TELUS Health?
So first of all, thank you, Alison and John, for inviting me to be here. Really stoked, as my kids would say. But I think you characterize the term properly, data silos. It's something that in the healthcare system you typically expected as a cost of doing business. I've talked to with health providers over probably 35 different countries, and the problem universally manifests. I think what's changing in 2026 is that that's no longer acceptable. You know, you kind of seen the hard lessons we've learned through COVID, and it basically puts an ecosystem at its knees when you have those data silos that you have to work with. So I think there's some external forces that are now starting to work with us to start to really enable and support the sharing of data. I think one of those is around legislation. So they're now encumbering, for example, the promotion of how to share data from within the ecosystem responsibly and with privacy. We've seen that leadership in Canada, for example, in Nova Scotia, where they've passed legislation so that the citizens can actually access their data through their mobile app, and we've been a part of helping that make that happen. And the other thing is that we're just seeing kind of a proliferation of standards, like in the CMS passing the FHIR standard to be able to share data more readily. So for TELUS though, it hasn't been at all about a technology change. It's really about what our customers are looking for, and they're looking for better health outcomes, and they're looking for providers to be deburdened, if you will, around entering data and being able to access data, through a lot of friction. So for us, it's a real important change for us to be able to
What's the change? What's been the change in the ecosystem specifically? Because the role of the ecosystem is super important when you have these vertically integrated stacks with a lot of horizontal scale, and agents are coming in over the top. You know, the roles change. Compare the old way to the new way. What was broken, what gets fixed, what was in place, what gets abstracted away, where's that value?
You know, it's a great question, John, and I think fundamentally healthcare likes to look at a patient from each of their own specialist lens. And that's really important because it provides that specialty care that you need to have. But like I said, it's no longer acceptable it's still the same patient at the end of the day, right? They're still kind of connected to all these different kind of care requirements that they need to have. So I think that what's really fundamentally changed is the ability for us to actually share data across different silos.
Saurabh, talk about the consolidation of data, because consolidations may not be a bad thing when you have now opportunities with agents, but there's still challenges. Mentioned regulation enables some change in the ecosystem. Governance is super important. Guys, talk about this concept, because consolidation, I guess, meant a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, throw in a data lake.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
And then, interrogate the data lake. Now it's kind of a fabric. They got the lake house here. How does this view of data play into this?
That's actually a very good question, John, and I will talk about this entire concept of consolidation of data in context of what we did for TELUS Health. So when TELUS Health came up with this entire business problem around building a platform that can enable a lot of different types of agent, what we realized that it's not just a data consolidation or a data migration project as we used to do earlier. This is more like building a new nervous system for a global healthcare platform. Right? So that's how we thought about it. So when we are thinking about a project of this nature, there are 3 critical elements that come into play. The first aspect is around deep understanding about the data foundation expertise. The second aspect is around advanced platform engineering expertise. And the third, which is the most important in case of healthcare customers like TELUS Health is understanding the healthcare ecosystem. Because you can't build a healthcare solution without understanding the nuances of PHI, right? Or how the complex the claims process is.
Yeah.
Or just more importantly, the criticality of the provider ecosystem in general, right? Now, when we talk about the data consolidation and when we're talking about multiple use cases or multiple sources of data, large amounts of data coming in, it generally takes many years for companies to complete such engagements. But in case of TELUS Health, we had our secret weapon called Codeaira. It's our AI platform for software engineering. Using Codeaira, we were able to I would say automate the migration of legacy code, a lot of different data pipelines, and we're able to basically move at the velocity that traditional engineering could not support, right? Especially in context of TELUS Health again, when we have to move fast and do it in a secure way, having platforms that leverage AI coding or AI platforms basically really play a big role.
Right, talk about the, this concept, you mentioned you guys are doing this. Consolidation is the first step, almost a step back to step forward. Scale is huge, you're global, okay? But also the word that's been most talked about on theCUBE, at least, well, it's not from me, but the guests, I say computer science and operating systems the most word. Unification is the word, right? So, how do you take the consolidation as a precursor to full unification and scale? Take us through that in your mind, frame that and scope kind of what you guys did.
So unification means has a very specific meaning in TELUS Health. So one of the things you need to know about TELUS Health is over the last 5 years, we've gotten about a dozen acquisitions. So we've inherited, every time we buy a new company, we inherit a new legacy system, a new data silo.
Migrations, and he's teasing it up right there. Connecting the dots in real time.
Yeah, that's it, exactly right. So, that's where unification for us means, some of the mundane things get left behind when you're looking at doing an integration, organizational changes, go-to-market changes, but like simple things like reporting and getting a handle on your visibility of your business across the entire organization really becomes important in terms of unification.
Different semantics on forms, data pipelines you're inheriting.
And it's compounded by the fact that we're in 200 different countries, so that same customer can be across borders, can have different service disciplines, and so you got to be able to establish the language and the definition of.
How did you tackle that problem? Take us through that, because I think this is we see this a lot, whether it's M&A or just re-engineering the platforms.
So what we did was actually, we started very modest with a very simple use case, just be able to do reporting, for example. But what we did was, we started to consolidate all the data into one place. We leveraged things like, master data management, metadata management. We actually established a discipline on how to be able to do ingestion really efficiently with the help of partners like Quantiphi, to be able to do that repeatedly and at scale. And so, that even meant sometimes building, automation connectors to build our data pipelines more efficiently. And I think the biggest key to our success, John, was really dedicating a team. Taking the investment to actually dedicate a team that did this only as a focus, full-time focus, and that paid huge dividends.
The quantification comes up a lot, quantifying the value.
Right.
Not to be confused with quantify, but when you have these projects, you got to show the business results. Any thoughts on strategies there? I mean, obviously, M&A is an easy one because you got to integrate. That's a milestone. Is there anything beyond that you guys have seen? Because this is a #1 issue we're talking about this year, not the strategy risk of AI, because everyone knows, infuse AI and everything. It's the execution.
So I think, again, a really easy one to point at that I like to, is when we started modestly on our customer reporting, what we saw is that it used to take 11 data sources and be able to process that manually. We were able to kind of create all one report and apply a lot of automation to it. So we were actually able to reduce the amount of time it takes to generate a customer report by 80%. That translates to about 15 hours per agent per year. So that's a real quantifiable benefit to the business, let alone the delight to the customers. I don't know, Saurabh, if you have any other?
similar to like what Fawad you just talked about, right? When we are basically doing any AI projects, we establish what the business use case is going to be, because some AI use cases or agents are expected to be either increase the top line or the bottom line. We are very clearly demarcating what the impact is going to be. So we put together a business case, and then once the agents are in production, the adoption starts to happen. We basically measure against the baseline that we have set, because that basically determines whether the projects are successful or not. And that's the real value that businesses get of enabling technology.
How do you architecture today to ensure that it's sort of future-proof then?
So that's actually a very million-dollar question, right? Because in today's world, when the technology is evolving so fast, we don't want to build something that goes obsolete the next time a new model or a new feature is launched by likes of Google. So I'll just take an example of, again, TELUS Health, as we're talking about with Fawad here, right? The approach that we basically took is what I like to call Launchpad Mindset, right? Where what we made sure is we are getting the data right. Because most companies basically try to skip the step around data and jump into the AI bandwagon, start building the AI roadmap. But for a good Gen AI strategy, having a more rock-solid data strategy is an essential element. If you handle your data challenge first, you are ensuring you are solving the hard problem of the unification aspect, the governance aspect, the quality aspects, and that basically makes sure you have a foundation on which everything else is built on. And then from there on, you basically make sure that this is scalable by building your reusable data models. And if you build reusable data models and data products across your data layer, then what you're basically doing is you're creating a more safe and scalable sandbox for your AI. Yep. And on those sandbox, you are able to build AI agents that are able to, one, solve like self-reporting use cases and other use cases that basically cater to both horizontal and vertical use cases.
Define for us what reusable data models means, because that's an important concept here. Can you expand a little bit more on what that means?
Sure, definitely. So in the previous ways when we were used to basically build data lakes, we used to put all the data together, had data lakes, which should be large, messy, etc. Now what we are doing is we are basically creating slivers of data which are catering to a specific unit or a specific business problem. Like for example, in case of healthcare, what we did was we created healthcare segments that are either catering to either the provider performance or employee productivity. So those data products are created for a specific use case, having the right ontology, so we are able to basically reuse them for different types of use cases.
How's that working out? Because I think, with agents, if you have intelligence, the assumption is it's intelligent, but it's not a search query. You're not finding something and reporting it, you're reasoning, which means memory, means you know what the intent is, you got some context. This is what they were talking about on the main stage today.
That's right.
Your thoughts on this, because it's huge.
It's actually really cool. Like now that we're at a stage where we've actually got our data in a place where we can actually leverage it to train some of these AI agents, the use cases are just exploding. I'll give you 2 examples that really come to mind. So we've all been in a doctor's office where you've got like these e-faxes coming into the inbox, you've got all these document attachments, and you're trying to get a referral built up. And so what we did was take that inbox, structure it in a specific way, apply some machine learning algorithms, and we were able to match the patients automatically to the documents that were coming in and be able to build the profile if they didn't exist. That reduces the burden of processing that by a half. Like that's pretty significant.
That's huge productivity.
Huge productivity.
And value to the consumer, in this case, the patient.
And the second example
goes up.
That's it. And the second example is taking that same methodology, building off the microservice that we built on our data platform, and then apply that in a completely different area of the business, where, for example, our payer, our provider customers actually often have to upload like, direct deposit forms or void checks to be able to get paid. So we were able to apply the same kind of microservice capabilities and be able to process payments without actually any intervention. And so we were able to completely eliminate a third-party service provider to be able to do that by ourselves.
So more efficient process, better care.
And reusability.
Reusability, okay, so I wanted to get that out there because a lot of these agents are just search recovery.
Yeah.
It's a search paradigm.
That's right.
Oh, you
No,
got
no.
the answer, but it's not the right
That's right.
answer. It's the first answer they find.
Yeah, it's the first answer they find.
Yeah, it's okay. Like that's not. Well, you don't know. Quality comes into play.
Yes, and that's why basically making sure we give the right context and have the right guardrails in terms of how we are building the agents become very important, because then the agents or the models don't hallucinate and give you the right information that you're looking for.
All right, so question to both of you. For other healthcare and enterprise leaders watching, who want to embark on a similar journey, what is the one piece of advice you want to offer to ensure that they can successfully navigate the tension between core modernization and scaling new intelligence? Fawad, you go first.
I'll go first. So what comes to mind to me, Alison, is actually a very simple thing that I learned along the way that I think is actually quite profound, and at the same time probably applies to most organizational contexts. And that is this idea of doing a top-down approach and being leadership-led and directed, and at the same time, creating a grassroots level of innovation so that you can actually unleash the technology in all areas of your business. So what do I mean by that? On the leadership side, we see through conferences like this, the data and AI has to be a conversation at the leadership table. And it's kind of the responsibility for them to direct where are the most impactful areas of the business, and in fact, some of the areas that might be the most disrupted. So it's important for them to not only just govern where the direction of the technology is being deployed, but also make sure that in the healthcare context, you're not opening yourself up to unnecessary risk or misuse.
Yeah.
So on the grassroots side, you want everybody to be able to access the technology, talk about the technology, and create these kind of like birds of a feather capabilities so they can make faster decisions and be able to automate the tasks that they have to do their job more efficiently. And finally, rally the entire organization around a single data mission, because when you get that, you start to see the speed and the intelligence, and that's very addictive and very attractive.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I'll just build on to what Fawad said. My first word of advice would be that a lot of companies basically start solving point AI, or let's say they start building point solutions for AI applications. I will suggest that they should solve their data challenges first, because that's the launch. I'd say that's the right launch pad, and have that mindset. So instead of going after one AI application at a time, think about a platform or an ecosystem approach similar to how TELUS Health team thought about it. Because the way we build the TELUS Health platform, if the customers do that in the same way, instead of resisting change, they will be thriving on the change. So that will be the one advice that I will give. Yeah. Think about solving the data challenges first.
Well guys, great insights. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing the examples and also the strategy of the success you've had, and great to have theCUBE in your booth, and with theCUBE over at Quantify's booth, a lot of good content coming out of there, so thanks for partnering, and thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Yeah,
no, definitely.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Alison.
Fantastic conversation, thanks. And you've been watching theCUBE, the leader in live technology coverage. We'll be right back.